Roots truly speaking louder than words. Stay with us as we take you through. The game is on and the story just gets started. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back. My name is Ekpo Temple, and on today's edition of Sports Personality, I have Kingsley Epalebo joins us this morning. Welcome to the show, bro.
Yeah, thank you, thank you for having me.
All right, quickly let's start with the man in question, Ademola Lookman, and I'll look at his background. He was born on October 20th, 1997, in Wandsworth, Greater London, to Nigerian parents. Luxman's story is one of discipline, dual identity, and deliberate growth. This is a player who combined football excellence with academic brilliance, achieving 3 A stars and 5 A's at GCSE level. A reminder that intelligence on the pitch often begins off it. Before the bright light of Europe and Africa knew of his name, Lukman was honing his craft at Waterloo FC before joining Charlton Athletic Academy in 2014. By 2015, talent had broken through the ranks and a young Ademola Lookman announced himself on the professional stage. This segment sets the foundation where character met opportunity. And I can tell you for sure that this is just an introduction to who he is. But from that exposition I just did, how important is the background of a personality like Ademola Lookman, and the fact that his academic background too, who he ended up becoming is a footballer, is not a lecturer, but how does background shapes the growth of an individual, especially the man we're talking about, Ademola Lookman?
Yes, it's extremely important for someone like Ademola Lookman. If you notice, he's someone he's a player who thinks quickly. He adapts tactically and he makes very smart decisions under pressure. You look at him and you look at his career choices, and you look at the decisions he has taken in his life as a footballer so far. You cannot deny that the academic, there's an influence of academic brilliance in there. You cannot deny the fact that academically he's intelligent. If you look at Charlton Football Club, he was modeled as one of the best academic graduates coming from there because of how he was able to balance schoolwork, how he was able to perform academically also, and also sporting wise. So you look at him, went to a good school, a school that is good for academics and sports, and he was able to balance it. He was a high performing student, and basically when you look at the decisions he has taken in his career, decision for him to move to Germany, his decision, for him to come back to England, his decision for him to move to Italy at some point, and also the decision of him, playing for Nigeria. I mean, you cannot deny the fact that it has played a major role, in influencing him and has shaped him. It has helped him, take better decision, be better in decision making, thinking out issues, and it helps him. When you go to school, there's this edge you have over people. You're able to think quickly. You're able to ask, important questions. You're able to ask the important questions. And his coach at Charlton, his academic coach at Charlton, pointed this out as one of the key features of Ademola Lookman. His ability to ask intelligent questions. To look at problems and be able to figure it out. His adaptability. And that is one of the features, of Ademola Lookman. And we cannot deny the fact that, his academics played a huge role in that.
His academic did play a huge role. And I talk about academy, but let's take a look at, yeah, he was very good, sound academically, but then he ended up becoming a footballer. From that introduction, we heard that he started his grassroots club, from Waterloo FC. Waterloo, in my understanding, is defeat. The Waterloo, fight between the Nazis and, the World War then. But I won't want to go into all that. That reminds me. But how does that begin for him? When you start as a amateur, player in a club but today now, everything you trace about him now, you're going to reference the club, whether he had a little stint with them or not. Somehow, you cannot forget that. So how was he able to cope with academics and Waterloo? And at what point did he now decide that, okay, he wants to focus more? Because when you are growing up, you do not know whether you're going to become a footballer. You just leave your future to divine provisions. Was that his case?
Yeah, you look at Ademola Lookman. Ademola Lookman was someone, I think, for me personally, I think he was at Waterloo because of so many rejection. He just wanted to play football. You look at Ademola Lookman, he's one of those players, that faced a whole lot of rejection, growing up. A lot of academics, rejected him growing up. So, I mean, Waterloo was one of those options where he could still be able to play football and also try to balance his education, growing up, especially as a Nigerian, in a Nigerian family where, academics is very important. You need to have, no matter what you are doing, you need to focus on education. To a traditional Nigerian family, there's this importance, placed on education. And he's a Nigerian, born from his both parents are Nigerian. So I mean, he has that background of education. And I mean, no matter where he had to go to, he was already instilled, with that discipline. He was already instilled with that mindset. So I mean, playing for Waterloo, probably it's a starting point for him. Because if you look at Ademola Lookman, I mean, that was not where he would have wanted to be. A lot of his peers, his age mates, had gone on to different academies. Had gone on to Chelsea, to Fulham, to Manchester United, and he was stuck at Waterloo. And that shows you, his mindset as a player. He didn't let that to bring him down. He was still able to build on himself. A lot of people would have given up, but I mean, he was very, very strong and courageous as a player, and he had a very strong mindset growing up as a kid.
So do you think growing up in England with Nigerian roots gave him a broader footballing identity?
Yes, it's absolutely vital for me. Grassroots clubs are where these footballers get to fall in love with football. For me, that's where creativity is encouraged. You are free to express yourself as a player, and also before you begin to see structure take over. I mean, that is where creativity is born. That is where you are going to express yourself. So without places like Waterloo FCM, you don't get to see raw players. I mean, for me, you get to see programmed players, and that is the problem we are having right now. A lot of people are saying it. The modern footballers and the modern academy players are mostly, programmed. They do not have that bit of creativity in them. It's all about what they have been taught since since they are under 6, since they are under 12, to do in their academy. They do not have that identity. They do not have the freedom, to express themselves. So I mean, it's absolutely vital in the growth of a player.
Very vital in the growth of a player. And then, what point did you personally notice Luxman as a player to watch? Was it from Waterloo or when he graduated to the bigger level where people now got to know about him?
I think it has to be, his stint at Leicester City.
Okay.
For me, he was able to give him those brilliant performances. I mean, you've seen him. He was at Fulham at some point in time. I mean, that was when Everton bought him, but he didn't have that game time in Everton. But when he was able to go over to Leicester City, I mean, at that time there was a certain friend Didi in the squad. Ahmed Musa was also in the squad. So I mean, a lot of Nigerians, we are looking closely, watching closely to this Liverpool, to this Leicester City side. And for me, whenever Ademola Lookman, came on, he was able to show that bit of brilliance for him. You could see that this is a raw player, whose team needs building. But I mean, that was the first place I noticed Ademola Lookman.
Of course, we're looking at Ademola Lookman. He leads AFCON player rating after the round of 16. And I tell you, they will be taking on with the Super Eagles Desert Foxes of Algeria this evening. And so you see why a look at that man, Ademola Lookman, becomes very important on today's edition of Sports Personality. All right, let's talk about him a little. From Charlton came a big leap. That means he had a stint with Charlton.
Yeah, he had a stint with Charlton. I mean, Charlton were the first club, to actually believe in Ademola Lookman. He got into the academy at around age 15, which is a little bit late, compared to a lot of his mates. But he was able to show that brilliance, and a lot of Premier League clubs, were already eyeing him, and that got him, the big move he had to Everton.
And then from Everton, he secured a signature, a move filled with purpose and pressure. He wasted no time scoring on his first Premier League debut against Manchester City. Yet, football development is really linear. At Everton, Ademola Lookman faced limited minutes, managerial changes, and tactical uncertainty. Then came a defining decision, rejecting a championship loan move and opting instead for RB Leipzig in Germany. That bold choice paid off instantly, scoring on his Bundesliga debut. What followed were seasons of movement: Fulham, Leicester City, and back to Leipzig. A year some might have called unsettled, but which, in hindsight, really define who Ademola Lookman is in terms of adaptability, resilience, and tactical intelligence. These were not wasted years; they were preparation years. I love the lines there, and it reminds me. We talk about. He said in Charlton he was really embraced because that was his first contact officially with clubs at that level. Was Everton the right move for Lookman at that stage of his career when he left Charlton?
For me, in hindsight, it was the right move, but it was premature for me. You look at him, coupled with where Everton were at that point in time. There were a lot of problems with Everton. With managerial changes, and a lot of managers were coming in and out of the club, and the environment was not stable enough for a growing player. So he learned a lot of valuable lessons there for me. I mean, he learned about being resilient, patience, competition. I mean, that team, being in Everton, it helped build his mindset. He wasn't guaranteed a starting place as a younger player. He was just put into the first team, and it was a turning point for him. I would say he learned to be resilient. He learned to be competitive. He learned to put his head on the ground. He learned to have patience in Everton. So I mean, it was a turning point for him. It was a learning curve for Ademola Lookman. It was right, but it was pretty premature for me.
Pretty premature. And then when you look at the person that he is, one begin to think of how significant it was his decision to stay. But before we go to RB Leipzig, let's talk about Everton. I've seen players who play for a club like in the Premier League, they prefer to be benched than going outside the Premier League. But this was not the case with him. He felt that he was not having a good playing time. At that time, sincerely, will you think that he was strong enough to compete for title in terms of compete for other teammates who were there?
I mean, the talent was there. You cannot deny it. You know, you look at a player like Ademola Lookman. You know, he's good on his feet. You know, he's good on the ball. But at that time, he was very raw, and he needed to play. And I do not think Everton were at the point in the team where they were at a very crucial stage in the club. I mean, then the club were not in a good standing, and they were fighting relegation. So, I mean, that is not the time you had to give playing minutes to a lot of academic players. You know, you needed players who could deliver results for you. So, like I said, you know, the timing at that time, it was really premature for Ademola Lookman, looking at the move for him. So, him going there as a young player, he needs minutes, he needs playing time to develop. So, I mean, for me, it was the right move, you know, moving out of the club. But coming to Everton, you look at the position Everton were. I mean, on a normal day, Everton are at the point where he is supposed to play. But looking at the position they were at that point in time, they were fighting relegation and they were not stable as a club. That really, you know, played a huge role in him not seeing game time.
And so he decided to move to RB Leipzig over Derby County. For Derby County, I mean, a championship team, possibly would have seen games. So why the change in decision?
I mean, every player would want to go to you know, a bigger club. You know, it gives you opportunity and a club outside of Europe.
So in terms of visibility, RB Leipzig and Derby County, which is more visible?
I think it has to be RB Leipzig. So that time, you know, RB Leipzig had good players. They had at that time Timo Werner was there and they were doing very well for themselves. At some point, you know, they were competing in the Champions League, competing for the Bundesliga, and we should not forget that RB Leipzig. When you talk about the team as a whole, you can't compare it to Derby County. RB Leipzig, you know, they offered him elite coach in European football. We shouldn't forget that you know, European football was key for him as of that time, and also, you know, having good coaches, you know, having those top coaches, you know, at your disposal. I mean, those are the factors I think Ademola Lookman, you know, looked at before accepting going to RB Leipzig against Derby County.
So you think that loan spares, you know, add a lot to the teaching of players, but not all cases are like Ademola Lookman, isn't it?
Yes, loan spells are for, you know, adapting quickly. You know, you do not have you have to earn your performances. You have to earn your place in the starting 11. You need to earn trust first, and you know, you have to perform without excuses. You know, these loan moves teach survival for young players, and I think a lot of players who have become who they are today, you know, went through the same route. I mean, you need to play games, you need to prove yourself, and you do not need to be where you'll be spoon-fed, you know, where you are an academic graduate, where a lot of people have that sentiment for you. You need to go out into the real world and survive, and that is what it helped him as a player. A lot of players have gone through these same processes. You talk about Victor Gyökeres. Victor Gyökeres was once in the Premier League. You know, he played for Brighton, and at some point he was loaned to Coventry City, and from Coventry City he found his foot, and he got a move to Sporting Lisbon, and he's back in the Premier League. So there are countless number of players you could talk about. Harry Kane also at some point in time, you know, he was at Tottenham. You know, Tottenham loaned him to Leicester City, where he was able to get a little bit of game time, learn from elite strikers also. The likes of Jamie Vardy was also in that team. Came back to Tottenham and he was also able to perform. So I mean, going on this loan moves, you know, helps you as a player, especially when you're going to a team that there are a lot of players you can learn from, especially when you're going to a team that has wealth of experience. For Ademola Lookman, going to RB Leipzig, going to the Premier League also, you know, from RB Leipzig, he got a loan move to Fulham. We cannot deny the fact that as of that time, you know, Fulham had a lot of key players, a lot of quality players in their squad. Also for Leicester City, also Leicester had a lot of quality players. So I mean, loan moves are not always successful, but I mean, it plays a huge role in developing players' careers.
So you think that the movement sharpened him instead of slowing him, right?
Yes, they sharpened him. You know, at that time it looked unstable, but you look at him now, we see that it was a preparation for him. You know, he became adaptable. He was so versatile. Ademola Lookman, you look at his days at Leicester City, he played from the left wing. You know, at Fulham, he was able to come in as a supporting striker. So, you know, those moves, you know, prepared him for who he is today. You know, he became adaptable. You know, mentally, he became very strong. And, you know, the qualities you see today at Atalanta and Nigeria, where he plays, you know, were built when he was on loan for me.
So which of this club, you know, and because of his movement, will you attribute to have brought out the best in the person we know today in Ademola Lookman?
For me, I would have to say it has to be, his loan moves to England. The both of them, Leicester City and Fulham. That was a turning call for Ademola Lookman. In his career, he thought that he learned how to press. He learned how to he gained his mentality. As a player. I think there was an incident where he decided to come up and take a penalty. That was for Leicester City. When he wasn't the penalty taker, he said he wanted to take the penalty, fought for the penalty, and he went up to that position and he lost the penalty. And a lot of players would not have, they won't learn from that thing. But Ademola Lookman, he kept his head high. I mean, he never felt let down. Was mentally strong. So I mean, his move to Fulham, gave him the mentality he had today. You look at the teams. Marco Silva was able to give him that pressing mentality he has today. So I mean, it has to be the move from his loan moves at Leicester and Fulham.
Which club also during this period shaped him, and we talked about it technically. So Fulham and Leicester City were the teams that really shaped him. We got a short break now. When we come back, I was still looking at Ademola Lookman, and of course, we'll try to see his turning point in all of the clubs after he left Everton, and went to RB Leipzig. All right, welcome back from that break. If you're just joining us, it's still sports personality on Atlantic Television Network. Saturday, the 10th day of January 2026 here. And we've been looking at that man, Ademola Lookman. He is the highest rated player in the ongoing Africa Cup of Nations. And this evening, Nigeria, he will be marshalling out the attacking front with the likes of Victor Osimhen and Adams Akor, when Nigeria will take on the Desert Foxes of Algeria. So we talk about this background, talk about a whole lot of issues. But it's not time to take a look at some of the other issues about him. So I'm sure if you truly do not know about Ademola Lookman, we have really opened up to you to see more about him. Before we delve into this thing, from RB Leipzig, how was the movement to Atlanta?
Yes, he had 2 loan moves. That was the first loan move to Fulham for me. I think I made a mistake earlier when I talked about Leicester City missing a penalty. He missed that penalty actually when he was at Fulham. He opted to take a Panenka in a very crucial game for Fulham when they were struggling for relegation. So at Fulham he was able to get he had public criticism. The whole of the Premier League, were criticizing him. He learned to have that mental stability and that mental strength. It was a confidence test for him. And going on to Leicester, Leicester City for me was where he was able to build his belief and his confidence. A team who finally trusted him. Going to Leicester City, after his loan move, Leicester City wanted to make it permanent, but he opted out of it. He refused to make the deal permanent because a lot of teams were watching him, when after the Leicester move, and he was brilliant for Leicester City, and that was when Atalanta, he caught the eyes of Atalanta, and got that brilliant move to Atalanta. So you look at his game time at Leicester City, he was able to score crucial goals for them. A team that Brendan Rodgers, finally had belief in him. He found a coach who actually believed him. He was given good playing time. He was given a considerable amount of playing time, for Leicester City. And Leicester City helped shape him as a player, helped shape his belief and his confidence. He was allowed to take on players. We saw that flair, we saw that structure in Ademola's Lookman game. The maturity you see today was built under Brendan Rodgers for Leicester City. So for me, his game time and how he was able to develop through those loan moves helped him, get that move to Atlanta.
So he moved now to Atlanta, and a lot to be said in Atlanta. In the club of Atlanta, he got with the help of his teammates and the goal scoring, exploits, he played in the final in the Europa League final in Dublin. Lookman delivered a hat-trick against Bayern Leverkusen, the first in one-legged European final since 1969. That performance didn't just win Atlanta the first European trophy, it crowned Lookman African Player of the Year, making him only the 7th Nigerian to claim that honor. From promise to powerhouse, this was his arrival. So why did Atlanta prove to be the perfect club for Ademola Lookman?
Yes, Atlanta gave him, trust and, tactical freedom. They played aggressive football, attacking football, and also, that helped him. That was his kind of football. It's a team that allows wingers and attackers to express themselves, to express themselves. You look at a lot of, in recent years, Atalanta has been able to, churn out a lot of attackers and wingers. Currently, you look at Selemakers, you look at Cope Miners, you look at also Rasmus Højlund. These players have come from the depth of Atlanta as well. Atlanta team has been able to build that freedom. They've been able to give their strikers and their attackers that freedom. You look at the kind of football they play, attacking kind of football, freedom for the attackers to express themselves. So Atalanta has been the best team for Lookman so far. He wasn't boxed in, he was empowered, he was allowed, and he was given the freedom to do actually what he knows how to do best.
So had he not played with Atlanta and got into the finals and even scored a hat-trick in the finals of the Europa League, do you think he would have been the African Player of the Year?
He had a very brilliant season with Atlanta, but I mean, winning the getting to the finals of the African Cup of Nations, being one of Nigeria's best performers, and getting to win that to win the Europa League. I think that was the icing on the cake for Ademola Lookman. He had a brilliant season, but I mean, getting to score a hat trick in a Europa League final, in a European competition final, as an African. I mean, and that just put the icing on. They were at that time, it wasn't arguable again. Before then, you could argue it, but for me, after winning it, I mean, it was no doubt that Ademola Lookman, was the best candidate for the African Player of the Year.
And then somehow he had he nosedived in his career with Gasperini. Okay, when Gasperini left, the coaches that came in, he had some issue with them in Atlanta, and that nearly robbed him of all his achievement with the side.
Yes, after Gasperini left, I think Juric was the coach at that time, and Juric has had issues not just at Atlanta. He has had issues of laying his hands on his players, and that's a very bad precedent as a coach. And you do not there are some players who need the boundaries. They need to. And Ademola Lookman is someone who is calm, but he understands boundaries, and he understands there are limits to things. As a player as important as Ademola Lookman, you need to accord him with the respect he deserves. There are some players that have done they've worked hard to a certain level that requires respect. You need to respect these players, and he wasn't given the respect he deserved. And I mean, when as a coach, you do not respect your players, you do not give the players the respect they deserve, and you do not work with it, you don't have a good relationship with these players. I mean, it would tell a whole lot in their performances. They won't perform at the very, very best, and that was what happened, with Ademola Lookman. As of that time, he also sought for a move, to Inter Milan, and the move was already settled, but Atlanta, denied him that move. So I mean, when you look at all those factors and all those situations, it played a huge role, with his deep in performances for me.
So if you look at him on club side, from Charlton, Waterloo, Charlton, do you think he's currently at the peak of his career?
Currently, he's at the peak of his career. He's 27 years of age. I mean, that's when players hit their peak and their full potential. So, I mean, you look at what he has been able to do. You could still argue that he can do more and he can do better. But to be honest, I think he can still achieve more for me.
Okay, and then let's talk about the other chapter. And that's the fact that he not just played for career, I mean, for his club side. He also has an international career, and switching allegiance after playing for England in the on the level, on the 2021 level, before switching to Nigeria. Could that be from his parents, or the fact that that was what he desired originally?
I think he's a Nigerian, and that would play a huge factor. Both parents being Nigerian, that would play a huge factor of him wanting to represent Nigeria. But I mean, let's not jump the gun. I think for someone like Ademola Lookman, if he was given the chances and the opportunity to play for England, I will not be surprised if he would take it over Nigeria, because you look at Ademola Lookman, he played for England, from his under levels. He was part of the squad that won the Under-20 World Cup with Gareth Southgate, and he has been an integral part of the team. But I mean, he didn't really have a rosy career, and the color, it's an unwritten, rule, and it's an unwritten problem that has happened, in English football. For players in diaspora, it has been a big issue for them. No matter how good you're performing, you need to be at the very best, for you to be called. So I mean, Ademola Lookman, looking at all these factors, he had to put it in play that his best option, is to play for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, because I mean, as of 23 years old, 24, he hadn't gotten a call up to the Three Lions of England. So I mean, he put it into perspective. Playing for a national team, playing international football, helps your career a whole lot. And you cannot deny the fact that his change, the switch from England to Nigeria has actually helped his football. There has been an upward rise, in what he has been able to achieve and what he has been able to do for himself, ever since he chose to play for Nigeria.
And then at the African Cup of Nations, after he switched in 2022, in 2023, he was the difference for Nigeria, scoring against Cameroon and Angola en route to the final. In recognition, he was awarded Member of the Order of Niger. But let's fast forward now to African Cup of Nations this year, the one that we are on. Lukman has been unstoppable. Goals, assists, man of the match performance, leading Nigeria with authority and confidence. How far can he, push Nigeria once again to the finals, conquering big names like Algeria and possibly Morocco or Cameroon?
I mean, he's shown that he has the capability, the ability to do it on the big stage. I mean, for me, he's one of those players that thrives, when the pressures are high. One of those players who like to do well on the big occasion, and it has shown, even this time at Atalanta, at the Europa League final, he was able to step up for Atalanta, and also you look at for Nigeria last year, the last edition of the AFCON. He was able to, step up also for Nigeria. So, I mean, this is a player that thrives, when the pressure is high, when it comes to this big occasion. So, he has proven it again, this edition of the AFCON. I think he has the highest goal contribution, 3 goals and 4 assists, 7 goals and assists, already in about 5 games. I mean, that's been impressive so far. And he has been, directly involved in 7 goals. So, it tells you what this player is about, what it's about. He has been able to prove that the AFCON has been, he's found comfort in the AFCON. He has been able to do well in the AFCON for himself. So it's not just a fluke what he was able to do last season. And with the help of Victor Osimhen, Ako Adams, and we are seeing a much stronger Nigerian team. So it's not going to be a problem for Ademola Lookman, trying to push his Nigeria team to success.
A lot of people think that his playing style is a little bit very conservative. He's not the kind of player like Cristiano Ronaldo, but somehow he has he has dribbling skills. But what do you make of his playing style? What marks him out in the field of play among his counterparts?
I mean, it's his decision making for me. He's someone who
sometimes he holds on to the ball too much.
Yeah, he holds on to the ball too much. But I mean, he's a player that he knows when to shoot. You look at him. He's one of those players that they could create something out of nothing. And that is Ademola Lookman for you. And in a very tight corner, he's able to shoot the ball, and score a goal for his team. He's able to create those chances. He's able to draw a lot of players to him, attract a lot of defenders to him, and someone who is quick with his feet also. So, I mean, his decision making for me has been a standout. He might tend to be selfish sometimes, but he's someone who has proven to have a very good decision making when it comes to the ball. You look at that game, against the Europa League final against Bayern Leverkusen, that was elite football. His ability to know when to shoot, he has an eye for goal. That is something that we know about Ademola Lookman. So when you look at these qualities, especially when it comes to these big stages, these are the things that stand out. Your ability to have an eye for goal, your ability to make the right decisions, especially on the field of play. I mean, it matters, and he has been able to stand out for me.
So what kind of personality do you think outside the field of play that he exhibits? Like you look at him outside and say, okay, this is the kind of personality that he is.
I mean, Ademola Lookman has shown to be someone who is less problematic. He's not someone who you could say he doesn't live for the media. He's someone who is very conservative. He's a player who he has been able to live his life away from social media. He's someone who doesn't live for the media. So I mean, you look at Ademola Lookman and also the recent controversy with Victor Osimhen and how he was able to manage the whole situation. Should tell you a whole lot about his personality. So I mean, he's someone who doesn't live for clicks and for the press. So he's someone who is very conservative for me.
All right, and what more do you think the viewers or the generations can learn from that man, Ademola Lookman?
I mean, from Ademola Lookman, we should learn about resilience. He's someone who didn't give up. For a player who had the dream of playing at the top level, not getting signed to an academy, till about the age of 15, a lot of people would have given up. And it's not also impossible, to push your academics and also football. Ademola Lookman has taught us that you look at his GCSE in England, where his A-level exams, he performed very well for his school. He performed very well for himself, and he was still able to balance it up, with high performances on the field of play. So I mean, if there's anything that Ademola Lookman has taught us, that we should believe in ourselves, and he's someone who has been very resilient. You know, he didn't give up no matter what, despite all the hurdles he had in his career. You know, from his field move to Everton to his field move to Fulham, he was able to still go again to Leicester City and Atalanta, and also he has been able to do well for this Nigerian side. So I mean, Ademola Lookman has taught us that we should also be resilient, and I mean, we should have confidence in whatever we want to do.
I wish we can go on and on and on to dissect Ademola Lookman's, tales, but this is why we call it a wrap on today's edition of Sports Personality here on Atlantic Television Network. I did a show with the Palibot, Kingsley Palibot. You did so well in explaining this man, more like you wrote about his career. Good job you did.
Thank you very much.
Ekpo Temple is my name. Next week, always glad to bring you the Saturday Sports Personality Show here, and I tell you, it will be another legend that we'll talk about on next week's edition of the show. But for now, enjoy the best, and more program continues here on Atlantic Television Network. Bye-bye.